That's right. And, I agree with you 100%. As you were speaking, it kind of took me to the 42nd surah of the Quran, which is titled Ashura. Ashura. And those first few verses there say the order, it gives some type of order and structure to what it is that you're saying. And those who hearken unto their Lord. The Arabic there is istajabu, which is those who listen. But the Arabic is even richer and deeper. Is that those who hearken? Hearken is a synonym for the word listen. Those who listen and not only listen, but they listening attentively, but they respond. So istajabu means listen and respond, but it goes deeper. Those who listen and respond swiftly. Okay, now why is this important? Because, see, Amrahum Shurabainahum is third. Is third. So this is all about communication here, what you're talking about in terms of establishing communication in terms of shura. And then Allah says, and Imam Muhammad taught us that you look at the ayat and you see the structure and what is placed first. So what is placed first? Those who listen and respond swiftly. Okay, so now we're going back to the Quran again. Now, we're keeping with the subject here, dear believers, if you're following us, is that Al-Quran, the final revelation, is real education because the Quran actually gives us structure for even communication. That's a form of communication. So when we're reading the Quran, only Allah is speaking to us. So Allah is addressing that. Those who hearken to their Lord, those who listen, istajabu. Those who listen and respond swiftly. Sometimes people say, we had this thing, Brother Henry, in society, yeah, I hear you. I heard that. I hear you. But were you listening? So when we read the Quran, Allah is speaking. He's the author of the Quran. But we should be listening, and those ayats that are commanding, we should be responding, but not responding like, I don't know, let me think about this. No. If you're a believer and Allah addresses the believer, I don't know how many times that might be something I have to do a little research on in terms of how many times Allah addresses the believer. But listen and respond swiftly. And then Allah says, and those who establish regular prayer. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. What does this have to do with communication? Well, now you're communicating to your Lord and Creator. When you are listening to Allah, Allah is communicating to us. When you are making your salat, you're communicating because, and how are you communicating? You go back to the Quran again in the Qiyam, the Qiyam position, the upright position. You only are reciting surahs or ayats from the Quran after Al-Fatiha. And then, now the third thing, in terms, and conduct all of your affairs. Now, we're not using the word affairs in terms of the language, in terms of secular, because they have denigrated affair. Affair is something that you cheated on your spouse or whatever, have an affair, blah, 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 with this person, that person, and all this. But affairs are actually a relationship. Conduct all of your relationships through Amrahum Shurabainahum. But look what the first two things in communication is. So, to your point, when you come to the table, you understand, in terms of forming and establishing an intelligentsia, you already have followed what Allah has said in the Quran first. It's the jabu. You listen and you respond swiftly, to the Zayats in terms of commands for those who believe. And then you establish the regular prayer, which is the communication that you are actually communicating, that this is what it is that I truly believe in that regard. And so that has so many other significant things, but I'm just using it in this way in terms of the form of communication. Now you can come to Amber Home, Shura Bana Home. And you have a foundation, what is we're about in terms of here, in terms of trying to show and illustrate that Al-Quran, the final revelation, is real education in that regard. And then what you bring to the table. And yes, even in terms of the specified things, the issues that we want to have those persons there, but you still want to have those persons there that are God conscious. And you understand when they speak, they're speaking from that foundation because, yes, everybody, like you say, can have an opinion. But what has influenced their opinion? What has influenced their opinion is very, very important. And those first two will actually help in terms of expressing those things that Allah would be in accordance with Allah's word, will, and His way. In that regard. And then what's the fourth thing, and I'll stop. And then spin out of that. Spin out of that. Give that, you understand, which Allah has blessed you. That goes back to, you can read an ayat, I can read an ayat, somebody else could read an ayat. Brother Micheal Hamin might be listening, he might get something totally different than what you get, or I get. But in that intelligentsia, all of that is brought to the table. And it may add on to what I get, you get, and somebody else get. And then we get different perspectives in terms of what we read. I'm hoping this is making some sense. But that is Surah 42 as sure in that regard. And it goes on, there's other connections to be made. But I wanted to just say that, Brother Henry, you for all this work. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Mark, you made me think about what the history says of when Al-Islam, when it was revealed to Muhammad the Prophet, peace be upon him, how the world, light came back into the world. They called it, they used to call it the Dark Ages, and I think now they call it the medieval ages. But we see those differences that you say. We see the a contribution that Al-Islam gave to engineering, gave to medicine, that gave to all of these different areas from reading the same book. So that shows you right there how Allah, that we can't get, because the engineer, Allah inspired him to come up with things that would benefit the human being in engineering, that we call it today. And to the doctor, he come up with things, the same thing that now he can operate on the heart. They say the first heart surgery was done, there, that I've heard Muslims say there, and we know the stories there. But we can see how all of these things, that it shows in the same book, and sometimes in the same ayat. It may be showing health, it may be showing wealth, it may be showing engineering, it may be showing a lot of different facets of Allah's creation, that heaven and earth that Allah say He created. And that's why we have to question, because Allah has given us an intellect to question. And we know in this society, especially we who went through the experience of slavery, that we were put into a position, forced into a position where it wasn't beneficial for us to think, because every time we use those facilities that Allah have given the human being, we were risking death. So we had to play like we were dumb, even though we wasn't dumb. And that's the opposite, of intellect, of being intellectual of knowledge, is to be dumb. And we know how they, matter of fact, you could still see on TV of these movies that they made of us there, where we had to act as though we were a dummy, but it took a smart person to act as a dummy. So I just wanted to add that to this also. And we want to
Yeah.
bring in our listening audience here in just a moment.
Yeah,
We'd
let's
like to
bring
hear
it
from
up and
them.
see what they have to say. So, alhamdulillah,
It's such a,
Allah is really guiding us this morning, Brother Henry. So, alhamdulillah, I love it. Yeah,
alhamdulillah.
let's see what they have to say. Questions or comments,
All right.
please.
So if you do have any questions or comment, we just go ahead and press 6 on your star 6.
Star six. It'll be star
If you
six.
want to just
Want
raise
to
your hand,
speak?
you can say
Yeah,
star
star
9.
9. Raise your hand. Star 6. Your mic is open, so you can raise your hand. Star 9. Star 6. Then your mic is open and you can ask your question or make your comment or anything we're saying is resonating with you. Thank you.
Yes, you may have some reflections that we can add to this. That because Allah bless, and this what an intelligentsia is all about. That when the group get together and we discuss these things, it's going to come out different things that may come out, as we said before, engineering, medical. It may come out all kinds of different things. It may come out a builder. It may inspire somebody to be all of these different things that we need in society, and that's so you don't know. We don't know how that inspiration will come to the person, but only Allah cause that inspiration. Some people become great artists just from that, just from reading this Quran. They call it Islamic art. That Allah inspired them. So we'd like to hear from you to see what you're thinking and what you can add to this most important conversation.
So, Brother Henry, if we don't have anyone, just in terms of the things that you say that really comes, the revelation that becomes inspiration or actually stimulating, cultivating what Allah has put into us individually to bring out that, as you and Dr. Jamal for years would always, talk about, words make people, and people are products of words. A word is anything that brings a message to your mind. But most certainly when you read the Quran, it brings a lot of messages to your mind. Matter of fact, in the Quran, there was revelation that came at that time that really the human being, Muhammad included, and those that lived at that time did not know. I mean, things was being revealed. They didn't have virtually no scientific knowledge at all, But what the revelation did was it became a catalyst, if you will. When the word was revealed, this actually pricked the intellect to want to know, to begin to explore, to look into this natural creation. And so you can see how Imam Muhammad, the Arabic word or term al-Amin, that has been translated in Yusuf Ali as worlds, Rabil al-Amin, Lord of all the worlds. That's okay, but as you said earlier, that's limited, and it's very, very, very limited if, in fact, that we don't understand in terms of the Quran terminology or language itself. Rab really means or more than Lord. Matter of fact, he used the analogy in terms of the relationship that a child has to their parents. It's greater, even greater relationship in that, in terms of parents, how we help, how we nourish our children, we help to try to sustain them, their life, and we guard and we protect them. The mother protects them. The father protects the mother and the child, the family. You see how they go. And also, we have to evolve the life of our children, because then we begin to teach them, or we should be doing that in the home life before we even send them to a learning institution. Their first learning is supposed to come from both their parents, mother and father. And Allah has given the honor and distinction to the mother to give that foundational knowledge not only to our baby girls, but to our baby boys. You see? So this relationship that Allah has as Al-Khaliq, the creator, he's also the Rabb. In other religions, they separate that. Whereas that you have a Lord that is supposed to be the product of God, the Son of God, where in the Quran we know that Allah is the creator, Al-Khaliq, but he's also the Rabb. He doesn't just create and leave his creation. He nourishes his creation. He sustains it. He protects and guards it. And he evolves it. Now, the highest form of creation is the human being. I think you said that earlier.
Yes.
And the most useful thing, as the Prophet Muhammad has said, and this is in Hadith Qudsi, which is a very Sahih, authentic Hadith, because this was something that Allah revealed to the Prophet, was the Aql. The Aql being the human brain, sometimes translated the human being, but more commonly the human intellect that could engage this natural creation. And it has the potential and the capacity that was given by Allah in terms of the human intellect to extrapolate from the natural creation. And Revelation had a big part in terms of that, in terms of sending a message to his mind, whereas that now man, given the natural curiosity that he naturally have, coupled with revelation, now he's able to go and to extrapolate these systems of knowledge in the natural creation, and he's able to advance human life. This is how human life, actually made progress. We need to know and understand that. But Revelation also gives inspiration, but it also, as Allah said when we was in Surah Al-Alaq, that teaching man what he did not know, that he did not know. He was not yet knowing these things. And what I'm saying is that Al-Quran, the final revelation, there was things that were revealed. The difference that the salt water and the sweet water, they don't merge. You think the human being knew that?
Right.
You think the human being knew about the fly? Had studied the fly at that point? No. And we could go on and on in terms of things that was revealed, but it inspired the scientists. The scientists, as Imam Muhammad said, to see into this, to see into this, to see into that. And thus you have all these ologies, the study of this, the study of that, biology, zoology, botany, you see, sociology, psychology. All of these ologies, they are courses in the secular society. But what inspired this? It was revelation and natural curiosity, as you said earlier. I just wanted to bring that to our attention, because if in fact that we accept that Al-Quran, the final revelation, is real education. Now we will study the Quran with different lenses and know that if we want to get real education, all these things that we study that in school, in the levels, even geography. Geography is a study of the land and the people on it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this actually, a lot talks about, study and see what happened to those people that came before us. All of this is teaching us, and it's giving us lessons everywhere in the Quran. All the ayahs in the Quran, they are expressions. You understand? There's a sign, an instructing sign for the human being's life. I could say more about that. I'll stop, Brother Henry.
It's so much, like you say, when we look at those 4 areas there. When you said geography, it made me think about George Washington Carver. Just in our time, as they say, there and the things that he studied and come up with in the earth. How said no, you can't plant the same crop here because it's taking it's I guess fertilizer and stuff from that, so you have to do crop rotation. So different crops there. So he come up with all of that, and that comes out of Allah's creation, which is what the Quran is. It's bigger than just the little written pages that we see. That's Allah. That's the creation that we talk about, that Allah created the heavens and the earth. And he breaks these things down for us so we can study. Look at how man has looked at air and seen how air supports the birds in the sky, and now we coming up with planes. Now we eat not only from coming up with that from the birds, but now we faster than the birds, and we getting faster. They tell me now they got a plane can take you from New York to LA in an hour and a half rather than 6-7 hours that it takes you to get over there. So these are the advancement that man is making in this creation. And when we look at the ones who have been through this bondage, because we got to get all this dirt, we got to clean us up, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. You got to clean us up so we can be ready to learn. And we don't have to learn with that deceitful thing that how it was put in us, that if you got one step ahead of me, then I was pulling you down or pulling you back because I thought I should be there. We got to clean all that up so we can get into the real knowledge of what Allah wants the human being to become. And as we know, as we read history, it won't be the first time that we came into knowledge like this as a people, or coming from a people who had those great skills that when we studied the ancient history to see us there. That right now, a lot of people in the world try to uh, uh, conceal or change that history from what it actually is. We have to go back in and call it for what it is. And the Quran will lay it out for us, because there's nothing hidden in the Quran if we have the right heart. Allah only says that those with the wrong intentions can't touch it. But if we go in and study and don't come up with just an opinion that is solid as a rock, that it can't be changed, or we can't grow upon it, then we will grow to stages that, I mean, is really unimaginable now to us, of where we got to go to. So I just wanted to say that we got about 8 more minutes in the program. So if there's anyone that would like to raise their hand, ask the question, now is the time to do it. We want to open.
Or make a comment, or if anything that we're saying resonates with you, we'd like to hear from you. Even if you want to just give the greetings, that would be fine too. and would also be appropriate. Brother Henry, you said a mouthful, as you say, head south. In terms of even geography. I remember fourth grade. That's a definition that I learned in the fourth grade, so you can imagine. And I'm well into my 70s now, so you can imagine how many years ago that was. But it was so fascinating, and I didn't like geography. I just didn't. I didn't care for history. I didn't care for geography, and I most certainly didn't care for science. But now I really love science and everything because when you make the right connections, and and you don't leave the Creator out of the picture. This is why the Quran is so very, very important, and this is why Islamic education. It's the type of education, and when we talk about education, we could probably take these last few minutes to talk about the benefits of Islamic education because it doesn't disconnect. It doesn't disconnect with the subjects that are taught in the secular society. To be honest with you, geography is a study of the land and the people on it. And you brought up one of the greatest scientists of all time, and even we said contemporary in our time, but he was a genius. Allah truly blessed him, and he had great reverence for God. He talking about Dr. George Washington Carver, he referred to God as Mr. Creator. Now, you have to remember the time that he actually lived, Mr. Creator. And he said that the vegetation, the plant life spoke to him. Of course, probably people at that time probably thought he was out of his mind. You crazy or what? No, he was far from being crazy. The creation does speak to you. It speaks to you. And, the study of the land. Okay, so there's land. And so before Dr. George Washington Carver, they wondered why they could get a good crop, and then after a few years, they couldn't get a good crop. So what you brought up in terms of the study of the land, that the rotation of it, that you wouldn't just continuously plant the same thing. There's certain minerals in everything that is in the land, but it can be depreciated, used up by just planting certain things. And I'm not an agriculturalist in that regard, but Dr. George Washington Carver, he studied that. And he studied the people that was on the land and what they were doing and not getting the desirable results. And Allah blessed him because as a scientist, or to see into this, he saw what the issue, what the problem was, what the critical issue was at that time. And not only did he talk about crop rotation and all, but he took something simple as a peanut and a sweet potato and said that and looking into it, he saw that there were products that could come as a result of studying. So a system of knowledge that's there. Prior to that, you just ate the peanut. I remember as a boy, peanuts, my uncle used to have some land. He used to take me and my brothers out and used to help him in terms of plowing the field and everything. And you get the raw peanuts and then bring them back. And my mother, my grandmother, auntie, they would take the raw peanuts and put them in the oven and roast the peanuts and everything. Sweet potatoes, I remember what they did with sweet potatoes. But this scientist looked deeper into this creation and saw that these two products, as simplistic as they are, they have far greater use and benefit. And because of that, Henry Ford at that time wanted to pay him an enormous amount of money. I think it was reported he offered him like $100,000 at that time, which could be equivalent to maybe $1 million or more in that regard. But he was very loyal in terms of his own people. But what he produced was for all of humanity. And so all of humanity, I'm quite sure would be very, very appreciative of the genius that Allah put into him to look into, to see into, to bring out, to bring out more than what the peanut was looked upon before that time, and more than what the sweet potato was looked upon at that time. And as a result of that, this spread not only in the United States, but all over the world in terms of what Allah blessed George Washington Carver, one of the greatest scientists of all time. So we're talking about education here, its importance, and all. And I think we're close about the end of time. So don't forget your Muslim Journal to subscribe to it. And please, the conference call is each and every Sunday. You want to dial 605-475-4000, 605-475-4000. And you want to put in the access code, which is 302-268#, 302-268#. If you're in the Eastern Standard Time Zone, it is high noon. And if you're in the Central Standard Time Zone, it's 11 a.m. And if you're out west, it's 9 a.m. Talking about an intelligentsia, talking about Shore, you have the opportunity to try to help our newspaper get back in the black again. Thank you so much, Brother Henry. It's always an honor to be with you each and every Thursday morning on Solutions for Critical Issues. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Mark. And we invite you to come right back here next week, same time, same place, for another edition of Solution to Critical Issues. And also invite a friend. Invite a friend.
Yes.
To look. You'll be surprised where the knowledge may come from or what may inspire them. It's just like, and I know we're out of time now, but just like inviting people to the masjid, when you invite them there and they say, wow, I learned something that I didn't know. And if they can do that, then they may take that inspiration, whether Allah bless them to become a Muslim or not, they may take it and become another George Washington Carver, or even some other great people there.
Yes.
At this time, we're going to turn it over to our brother Adam Bier with Money Sense here, because as we get knowledge, we need to have some senses. And those 5 senses is what we have to use to get the knowledge. So I'm sure we got to use those 5 senses to get the money and to know how to keep it also.
And whatever, brother Imam Adam again, it's going to be on the money. Assalamu alaikum.
On the money.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
How you doing, brother?
I had to say that, brother.
No problem.
I had to say that because whatever you're going to have, it's going to be on the money.
Alhamdulillah.
I'll embrace that, brother. No problem.
Yes, sir. Alhamdulillah. I'm muting myself now.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. All right. Again, assalamu alaikum, everyone. And if one of you can assign the host seat to me, that'd be great. I got to play a video, so I want to be able to share my screen. So please do that for me.
Okay,
if you get a chance. Brother Henry, if you know how to do that, please do that.
Let's see. How do I do that? Okay, let's see.
Go under participants.
Participants. Okay. I'm there.
And
let's see, mute. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Make host. All right, there we go.
Yeah, man.
I think I just did it. Let's see.
Okay, well, it's hasn't kicked in yet, but maybe it will in a minute.
Let's see. I said it. Make host. Let me set. Maybe I have to sign out. No. Let me see. Can I sign out as the host? Nope.
All right.
Don't give me that option over here. All right. It says on yours, make host. Did I get it that time?
No, sir. Oh, yeah, maybe you did. Okay. I can share my screen, so it's good. All right. We're good. Thank you. Thank you. I want to begin, as I normally do, open up with the Quran, and we're going to read Surah Al-Fatiha, which is the 35th Surah of the Quran, beginning with ayat 27. All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم ترى إن الله أنزل من السماء ماء فأخرجنا به ثمرات مختلفا ألوانها ومن الجبال جداد بيس وحمر مختلف ألوانها وغرابيب السود ومن الناس والدواب والأنعام مختلف ألوانه كذلك إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء إن الله عزيز غفور صدق الله العظيم. In the translation, with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Seest thou not that Allah sends down rain from the sky? With it we then bring our produce of various colors. And in the mountains are tracts, white and red, of various shades of color, and black, intense in hue. And so amongst men and crawling creatures and cattle are they of various colors. Those truly fear Allah among his servants who have knowledge. For Allah is exalted in might, all forgiving. Sadaqallahu Azim. Allah speaks the truth, and surely Allah's words are true. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. So, I wanted to just begin showing a clip. And the clip is from the title is Africa Strikes Back. Export ban strikes or shakes Western economies. Africa strikes back, export ban shakes Western economies. And this, I guess it was produced earlier this year, really was released to YouTube 22 hours ago, really. So I wanted to play this and then have some discussion on it. Hopefully, inshallah, you can see where we're trying to go with it. And I definitely want to get your thoughts on this also. So we're going to begin by sharing our screen. No. All right.
Is the West more reliant on Africa than previously believed? As African countries begin imposing export bans on Western nations, the true balance of dependence is becoming evident. The West is starting to feel the impact. What's the next move? and which nations are spearheading this change? Let's explore. For years, Western economies have operated under the assumption that Africa would keep providing inexpensive raw materials to support their industries. Resources like oil, gold, uranium, and lithium from Africa have powered sectors from technology to transportation across Europe and North America. But now, Africa is reclaiming control.
Start over again because I think you couldn't hear it. So we'll start it again, inshallah.
Western economies have operated under the assumption that Africa would keep providing inexpensive raw materials to support their industries. Resources like oil, gold, uranium, and lithium from Africa have powered sectors from technology to transportation across Europe and North America. But now, Africa is reclaiming control over these resources. A group of 10 African countries has enacted strict export controls on these materials, choosing to add value domestically and boost their own economic growth. This development is disrupting global markets and forcing Western nations to confront an unexpected reality. Africa will no longer just serve as a raw material supplier. This action goes beyond mere economics. It's a bold declaration of African sovereignty. By controlling the timing, method, and recipients of their exports, these countries are challenging a long-standing system that has kept them at a disadvantage. Traditionally, African resources were extracted cheaply, shipped abroad for processing, and then sold back to Africa at inflated prices. This cycle has hindered Africa's ability to fully benefit from its natural wealth and build sustainable economies. The new export restrictions represent a major change in how African leaders perceive their role within the global economy. 1. Ghana's gold policy change. Ghana, one of Africa's top gold producers, has implemented a bold measure to better manage its gold resources. New regulations require mining companies in Ghana to sell 20% of their refined gold directly to the Bank of Ghana. This strategy aims to help the country build up its gold reserves and reduce its dependence on foreign currencies, which have often exposed Ghana to external economic vulnerabilities. By retaining more wealth domestically, Ghana seeks greater financial stability and autonomy. For many years, much of Ghana's gold was exported in raw form, allowing foreign refineries and companies to capture most of the value. The new rule shifts this by mandating that mining companies refine a portion of their gold within Ghana itself. This move is more than just an economic adjustment. It challenges a long-standing system where African resources were exported with minimal benefit to the source countries. Ghana's wealth in gold begs the question: why should the country rely so heavily on foreign currencies to stabilize its economy? This concern lies at the core of the new policy. Western economies and industries have long profited from purchasing Ghanaian gold at low prices. By imposing export restrictions, Ghana is sending a clear message that its resources will no longer be used to subsidize foreign economies. Industries in the West, especially in jewelry and electronics, are already feeling the impact. As gold prices rise, these sectors face higher costs and tighter profit margins. Ghana's policy marks the end of the era of cheap and unrestricted African resources, asserting that the country will now ensure its natural wealth fuels its own economic growth and stability rather than enriching foreign markets. 2. Uganda's shift in agricultural exports. In a significant move in 2021, Uganda banned the export of raw agricultural products like coffee and tea. As a leading coffee producer, Uganda recognized the disadvantage of exporting unprocessed beans, which foreign companies then refine and sell at much higher prices. By focusing on exporting processed products instead, Uganda is retaining more of the value from its coffee industry within the country. This strategy is fostering a local processing sector that creates jobs, increases revenue, and strengthens Uganda's economy. The question arises: why should Ugandan farmers do the hard work of growing coffee only to have foreign companies reap the major profits. By addressing this imbalance, Uganda is setting a new benchmark in agricultural exports. The government has invested in infrastructure, such as coffee roasting plants to add value before export. This move disrupts the global coffee industry, which has long depended on Africa for cheap raw materials. Western coffee companies, used to buying inexpensive Ugandan beans, now face the choice of paying more for processed coffee or seeking other suppliers. This shift affects their profit margins and supply chains that rely on Uganda's affordable exports. By moving up the value chain, Uganda is enhancing its economic standing, reducing its reliance on unpredictable commodity markets, and ensuring that coffee profits support local workers and businesses. The effects on Western companies underscore the broader change in Uganda's economic policies. This approach challenges the outdated view that African countries should only supply raw materials to developed economies. By asserting its right to process and benefit from its own resources, Uganda is establishing itself as a competitive participant in the global coffee market. This transformation positions the country to fully capitalize on its natural wealth rather than just serving as a supplier. 3. Gabon's ban on raw log exports. In 2010, Gabon took a major step by banning the export of raw logs, signaling a new approach to managing its natural resources. Prior to this, Gabon's timber industry primarily supplied foreign markets, exporting unprocessed logs to Europe and Asia. Gabonese leaders recognized that this system left most of the value from their forests in the hands of foreign companies. By shipping out raw logs, Gabon was essentially letting others profit from its timber, while missing out on the economic gains of having a local wood processing industry. The core question behind Gabon's ban was, if its timber can support European industries, why shouldn't Gabon benefit directly from that value? The ban spurred the growth of domestic industries like furniture making, manufacturing, and carpentry. These sectors have created jobs, diversified Gabon's economy, and reduced reliance on exporting raw materials. European furniture makers have been noticeably affected, now facing higher costs because they must buy finished wood products rather than cheap raw logs. This shift has forced many companies to rethink their supply chains and acknowledge the real worth of African resources. Gabon's policy is now a benchmark for other African countries, demonstrating that local processing can generate substantial economic benefits. By investing in its timber sector, Gabon has rejected the idea that African countries must remain mere suppliers of low-value raw materials. This change is more than economic. It sends a strong message that Gabon is committed to prioritizing its own development over catering to foreign industries. Gabon's experience proves that African nations can take control of their resources and profit from them, challenging the old narrative that they only exist to provide raw materials to the rest of the world. 4. Niger's uranium export restrictions. Following a recent political change, Niger has imposed limits on uranium exports, particularly affecting France. For many years, Niger's uranium has been vital to France's nuclear energy sector, sold at prices that mainly favored French interests. The recent rise in uranium prices combined with these export restrictions sends a clear message. Niger will no longer allow its resources to be undervalued and exploited to support foreign economies, while the country itself remains underdeveloped. If France truly had energy independence, why would it be so impacted by Niger's uranium policies? This situation reveals how dependent European energy security really is on African resources, challenging the long-held belief in Western self-sufficiency. France's nuclear industry, which supplies a large part of its electricity, now faces rising costs and potential shortages. Niger's move is more than an economic decision. It's a bold assertion of sovereignty. By taking control over its uranium exports, Niger is forcing European nations to rethink and renegotiate terms that have historically been one-sided. Western energy markets, long reliant on cheap African resources, are confronting a new reality as Niger asserts its role as a key player rather than just a supplier. The impact on France highlights the critical role African resources play in global markets, especially for countries that depend heavily on affordable raw materials for their energy systems. Niger's stance shows that African nations are demanding fair compensation and respect for their resources. This shift is reshaping the global energy landscape, recognizing African resources as essential not only to their own economies, but also to global stability. France's reaction exposes the vulnerability inherent in Western dependence on African resources, a dependency that has been overlooked for too long. 5. Guinea's ban on food exports. Amid rising global food prices, Guinea has taken a decisive step to safeguard its domestic food supply by limiting exports of key crops like rice, maize, and yams. For years, these essential foods were exported, often leaving local markets short and vulnerable to price spikes. Guinea's new policy prioritizes the needs of its own people, aiming to maintain food security during global crises. Why should Guinea's population face shortages while their food supports wealthier countries? This export ban represents more than just a response to rising costs. It signals a new approach to managing agricultural resources. By keeping more staple crops at home, Guinea is placing its national stability above external market demands. This policy shields its citizens from the volatility of global food prices and reflects a broader African trend of prioritizing domestic needs. Western companies relying on cheap African food imports are now disrupted by Guinea's ban, facing higher costs and reduced supplies. These importers must either pay more or seek other sources. Guinea's stance sends a clear message. Africa will no longer sacrifice its resources and people's well-being for global convenience. This approach highlights Guinea's commitment to self-reliance and resilience, challenging the long-standing expectation that African resources serve international markets regardless of local consequences. By focusing on its own food security, Guinea asserts its agricultural wealth as a national treasure, not an endless supply for the world. Guinea's policy empowers the country and sets a strong example for other African nations aiming to regain control over their food systems. 6. Mozambique's timber export ban. In 2017, Mozambique took a significant step similar to Gabon by banning the export of raw timber and requiring that all timber be processed within the country. This move aims to develop local industries, create employment opportunities, and keep the economic benefits of natural resources inside Mozambique. Western companies that previously relied on importing raw timber from Mozambique now face limited supply as the country's domestic timber processing sector expands. If these companies truly support Africa's economic advancement, they should embrace this change. However, many preferred the previous system where Mozambique exported low-priced logs, while the more profitable manufacturing occurred overseas. By holding onto its timber industry, Mozambique is rejecting the traditional, low-value role assigned to it in the global market. This policy demonstrates Mozambique's commitment to reshaping its economic future by ensuring that its resources drive national development. Western companies accustomed to cheap, unprocessed timber are now confronted with fewer options and higher costs, a shift that prioritizes Mozambique's growth over the ease of foreign buyers. 7. Namibia's lithium export controls. As the global appetite for lithium has soared due to the electric vehicle revolution, Namibia has taken strategic action to safeguard its stake in this growing sector. The government introduced export restrictions on lithium to encourage the development of domestic processing industries and ensure that Namibia benefits directly from the green energy transition. Western tech firms and auto manufacturers, long accustomed to sourcing cheap lithium from Africa, now face a choice: invest in Namibia's local economy or look elsewhere. If Western nations are truly committed to sustainability, shouldn't they support this shift? Yet, many appear caught off guard by Namibia's assertion of control over a critical resource. By restricting raw lithium exports, Namibia is establishing itself as a vital player in the global clean energy movement. This disrupts existing supply chains and compels Western companies to operate on Namibia's terms. More than just an economic decision, this move represents a redefinition of how global resource partnerships should work. Namibia's approach ensures that the rewards of the green economy don't bypass Africa. Instead of being a mere supplier, Namibia is shaping its role as a partner and leader in the renewable energy future. 8. Ivory Coast's cocoa policy shift. As the leading global producer of cocoa, the Ivory Coast has taken a bold step by limiting the export of raw cocoa beans in order to grow its domestic chocolate industry. For decades, Western chocolate manufacturers have capitalized on inexpensive Ivorian cocoa, reaping massive profits from processing and selling finished products overseas. But why should a nation that supplies the raw ingredient for much of the world's chocolate remain excluded from the wealth it generates? With these new restrictions, the Ivory Coast is challenging that imbalance, keeping more of the value at home, while fostering job creation through local chocolate production. As a result, foreign companies now face increased costs and limited access to raw cocoa, disrupting a supply chain that has long depended on African underpricing. This policy is more than an economic adjustment. It's a declaration of fairness. By asserting control over its cocoa exports, the Ivory Coast is demanding a rightful place in the global chocolate market. It's a clear message. Africa should no longer sit at the bottom of the value chain, while others profit from its raw materials. 9. The DR Congo's push for mineral sovereignty. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is home to some of the world's largest reserves of copper and cobalt, two minerals essential to modern technologies, including renewable energy systems, electric vehicles, and electronics. For decades, these raw materials were exported with minimal local benefit, allowing foreign corporations to dominate the processing and profit-making stages. Today, the DR Congo is reversing that pattern by enforcing export restrictions on unprocessed copper and cobalt. This bold move is designed to promote domestic processing, capture more economic value, and reduce dependency on foreign-controlled supply chains. Why should the DR Congo continue to fuel the tech boom in the West, while its own development lags behind? By keeping more of the mineral value at home, the DR Congo hopes to boost employment, stimulate industrial growth, and ensure its natural wealth serves its own people.
All right, let's stop. That's about 5 or 6 more minutes in the program, but in that particular video. But by now you should get the drift of what we want to talk about. For years we've enjoyed, and I say we because we're in this economy, we enjoyed the benefits of the resources that were taken from Africa, whether you say it's legal or not, but we've enjoyed those benefits, mainly because the African countries did not get a benefit from the production of those resources and the sales of those resources on the open market, because they were not allowed to participate in the supply chain, right? So when you're talking about lithium, cobalt, bauxite, wood, we talk about those things, that the African country, even food, I mean, we know that European countries export food from Africa. Now, how many times have we seen videos of some of these African countries that there were food shortages, but they had enough food to export to somewhere else? And surely they could have used that food locally. How many times have we seen that? Right? How many times I mean, after I looked at that video, when my cell phone rang, I feel bad. I feel guilty because the materials that's in the cell phone, like cobalt, the materials in it came from African countries that we know that a lot of national, international corporations, a lot of companies made billions of dollars selling cell phones to the public. But the countries that the strategic raw materials came from did not benefit. Why? Because they were not allowed or didn't have enough power to participate in the supply chain. Most of them were not able to transform the minerals while it was in their country from the raw form to refine it, to bring it, to add value to that part of production. So when it was sold, they would get some of the wealth from that. And it really came to light when our illustrious leader here in the States told the tech companies they got to produce their technology here in the US. So he told Apple, you got to produce your technology here, and you had to have factories here to build the iPhone. And the answer was, well, if we built iPhones in America, they would be worth, we would have to charge $3,500 for an iPhone. You know, so that puts things in a different light. That put things in different light. So now we see that, and it's been happening for the last few years or so, that many of the African countries are waking up. They said, no, we're not going to let you take raw materials out of our country to refine them, to produce, to add value to them during times of production, and take it out. And we're selling to you in its raw form. And then whenever there's production or development of that raw material, it adds value to it. And then you sell it on the open market and you create billions of dollars for your industries. So we're going to limit that. We're going to establish production here in our country, which will create jobs for us. So I just want to see, just start that discussion because, and I'm gonna try to put the link to that in the chat so you can check it out and really think about it. So we do have a caller on the line. Not on the line, but on the screen, we go to area code 251-404. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Adam. How you doing?
Doing good, sir. How about you, sir?
Alhamdulillah. Thank Allah. That's a very, very really important subject that you're talking about, and it's really should be inspiring us over here. I made a comment a few weeks ago how I always thought that it would come from America and then go to Africa. But I say Allah is most merciful, and He's the all-knowing. So look like the inspiration that I was thinking would have here to take to Africa, then we would be able to help them uplift itself. But look like Allah has reversed it, and look like it's going to take Africa to help us uplift ourselves, because they don't have the challenge of what we was talking about this morning, the knowledge part, that we've been given false knowledge to the point that it hurts us, and that type of knowledge that the West have put out here, that Africa is now rejecting. You know, they didn't see anything wrong with taking the cotton out of Burkina Faso and giving them $1 a liter for it, and then bringing it back in as a T-shirt and selling it to them for $20. Well, they had a president, and we probably a lot of us know the history of Burkina Faso with the coups and things that they have had over there that we look at as bad. But if you study it closer, you find out that, hey, it's a new evolution, that some say revolution, that's coming into play. And of course, the world attacked them for doing this, because for them to come into power, they saw it as the West and the European countries losing power there. And of course, nobody likes to lose power. But this president that they have, President Ibrahim Traoré, is have been born, as I say, with a new mindset. I have come into a new mindset to free Burkina Faso from these things, and then now other nations. I think they say about 22 other nations and other African nations besides there is have formed an alliance. And like you say, Ghana and all that, say, hey, why should we send our gold out in the raw form? Our people stay poor, working in the mines, paying the price, the sacrifice, send the gold to you, and then when it comes back, if it comes back, you get all of the benefit, and the country, Ghana and Burkina Faso and all the other, Togo and Nigeria, you know, even though we know we still got corruption in some of these governments, why should we send it out to you and let you get all of the benefits, and we get poor every year? And then we have to beg for charity, and you are the great hero because you come in and give us some food aid to keep us struggling and in these positions to get to work the mines more, so you can get more of our gold or natural minerals, some places diamonds, and other places other natural resources that's coming out of Africa. So they said, no, we want to change this. We want to see Africa benefit, and we are no longer looking for handouts. We are looking for partners. If you want to partner with us, you want to be an equal with us, then we can deal with you, but we're no longer going to be the beggars and you be the hero givers by keeping us poor. In other words, you want to come and solve a problem that you caused. Well, yeah. that ain't the solution that we're looking for. You make the problem, then you want to be the hero to say, hey, we giving this. And our mind has been developed in the West. You know, looking at it, especially with what they presented on the television, there, that we have looked at Africa that it's a poor country there that doesn't have, you know, there's no hope for it. Except,
yeah, that's the lie that's being claimed. You know, when you look back in history, back in the 50s and the 60s, and you know, and I know when I was growing up, I was fed with the American public the lie about Africa. And if you get
Mm-hmm.
if you get a leader that won't go along, see the European countries were able to do that because they had a corrupt leader over the country.
Right, right.
All they had to do was give him kickbacks, or and he becomes like a
Mm-hmm.
king.
Exactly.
And,
Mm-hmm.
and so his family would be great, be paid, but the average African would be poor. And when you had a leader
Right.
that wanted to break that system back in the 50s and the 60s, like Patrice Lumumba, they treated
Uh-huh.
him like he was a strongman, and poor Idi Amin. They made,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then you heard about the Mau Mau. Remember the Mau Mau?
Uh-huh.
Back in they painted
They
in a bad light and made them look like they were corrupt and savages and things like that. The Zulus, and they come up with all these things, and that was the spin that they put on it to keep the world from taking note. But look how many African leaders they assassinated because they had the nerve to try to work for their people.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, the CIA was in part of that.
Yes.
Other
Mm-hmm.
European countries are part of that. So now that with social media and the word getting out, now you have African countries, ho, 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 just to take some lumber that they would export, just to say, hold up, we're not going to export lumber. I mean, the trees.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to, at least we're going to start preparing lumber. Now they're creating jobs. See how easy it is to create jobs when
Mm-hmm.
you have resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now
Right,
we can create
exactly.
the jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Cocoa beans. Hey, we can process cocoa beans or coffee beans or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can create jobs for our people. They can have value.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You understand? Because it don't make sense in shipping stuff out to be processed so that you can refine it. And at each stage of the refining process, you're putting value in that product. You're putting value. So by the time it hits the
Mm-hmm.
shelf, there's all kind of value built up in it. But the African countries were not getting the benefit of that value that was added on. They were not getting that
Mm-hmm.
benefit. And I
Right.
probably studied that in economics because I hated economics in college. I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't looking at it. If I was looking at it like that, I would have loved it. I would have got into it, whatever. But I didn't. You know, I didn't. So.
Well, it's I can relate. That's what I mean by the mindset
Hmm.
that set. There's science too. I used to hate science. I didn't like science because I didn't see myself in it. History, I didn't see myself in it. What they showed was so bad that you didn't want to hear that. But we find out that was his story. And
Hmm.
the truth of the matter was that we were very much in history, but we got a bad taste about history and science and stuff like this because of what we were taught in our so-called education system.
Hmm.
There that now because correct knowledge, is being now put out here that we got a choice whether we continue the lies and all of that. Do we break free, as they say, become a free thinker? They're in there. Just to use another example, Texas, for example, and Mexico, in the water they had called Cinco de Mayo we recognize every year. Matter of fact, a lot of African Americans, they don't realize that they were very much a part of that history, but that's
Hmm.
not the way it's put. And when you really learn the real history of it, you have a new respect for it, and that's what I got for Africa. For some years ago, we used to go to Africa, and we were trying to work with some of the Western countries, Ghana, Togo, and Benin. We didn't get to Burkina Faso, so I've never been there. But I've been through those countries there in Nigeria. But at the time there, they had government that was under the rule of European, the French, and Britain, and all of that. That they were just there as tokens. Like you say, they would be able to live in the palace, but the people outside of the palace was beggars, and they were living in poverty and all of this stuff just right outside of the palace. This is how bad it was in those places there. So I'm just glad that Africa now is coming into a new Africa, that it will be able to say that Africa always had, and as some say, it's got some of the greatest resources on the planet here. The resources that we make our cell phones and all of that stuff, a lot of that comes right out of Africa. Matter of fact, some of the stuff they can't even make without those minerals that Africa uniquely has. So, but we always will show them, and still when they show us a poor hut, tin top house, that makeshift type of thing that nobody would really want to live on, with dirt floors and all of this kind of stuff. And yes, they do have that. When I was in Tanzania, they did have the straw huts and all, but that's because they had locked Africa up. But thank Allah that a new spirit and a new light is coming there, and inshallah, God be willing, that it will catch on to us over here in America, which I think if we had followed and been able to implement some of the visions of Imam Muhammad, we could have took it to Africa even before now. But thank Allah that it's coming alive.
We should take it to Africa in our minds, brother.
Yes, and they're waiting. And they were waiting
to Africa in our minds yet, so we can't take it nowhere else.
Exactly.
Until we get it.
I agree, because when I talk to African Americans, a lot of them, I said they ain't left nothing in Africa. They still got that mindset today.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying the information the man gave us.
Right.
We can't take it nowhere until we take it to our minds.
Yeah, I agree.
With that being said, I got some other people. But one more thing, brother.
All right, well, I want to say one little thing on what you just said.
Henry, hold on, bro.
Adam, I want to just say one little thing on what you just said. Saudi Arabia. Okay.
Yeah, I got an idea, because I got an idea how we can make some money. They're trying to prohibit Apple from operating in Africa, and Trump wants to bring them back home, make it in America. I'm saying we start a new company and get it over in Africa. Instead of calling it Apple, we call it, I had it a minute ago. Hold on a second.
Oranges.
No.
Call it oranges.
Yumbo Liuma Pale. And that's the name of it. That's how you say apple in Ashiwambo, which is a dialect over there.
Okay.
All right. But thank you, brother Henry. I appreciate it, man. I got another call I got to get.
Alhamdulillah.
He got his hand raised.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right. Area code 727 408. 727
Welcome, everybody. Praise be to Allah. How do we think free? When we say a free thinker, how do we think free?
How do you think free?
Yeah.
You'll know it when it starts happening.
Adam, what they say?
You'll know it.
I say, how do you think free?
When you know it when it starts happening.
All right, then. Okay.
But if somebody else got something else, I'd like for them to say a little something too. But anyway, though, thank you, Brother Adam. Praise be to Allah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam. And I say that it's not necessarily in the thoughts. You can know the thinking.
Yeah.
You can know the thinking when you see the results. And that's why I said it that way.
That's a logical conclusion. You're right there. I see, but that's the logical conclusion there.
But that's my answer.
Yeah, you're right too. Praise be to Allah. Thank you, Brother Adam.
Thank you very much.
And Adam,
yeah,
I would just say to what Bilal was saying, when we start studying the natural creation, and we know Quran is based on the natural creation, so we can say natural creation and start studying and understanding the Quran, then we will know free thinking when you see free thinking, because you'll get the results of what free thinking is. It won't be based on the tainting of history as man has given it, and especially here in the West, of what they have taught human beings that they are below the natural human race. You know, that's what they taught African Americans or slaves over here, that we wouldn't, and they tried to prove it with science, that we were not equal to what a full human being is. We were a little bit less than what a human being is. Right. But in reality, they trusted us to raise their children, to nurse their children and all. So here they was nursing their children with people who was less, as they taught, than they were. So history didn't, their action didn't go with what they were teaching us. So you will know when you become a free thinker.
That's what I say. Rather than, we can have debates all day long on free thinking. So I'm not one to be doing that, but let's go to the phone line. So I got another caller up here. I'm going to get his hands up. So, okay, Brother Edward. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
So I want to very quickly answer the question about free thinking, and then I've got something to say about us in Africa. Free thinking is walking down the road when you're 7 years old, seeing a rock, picking the rock up, throwing it as far as you can, and then determining, if I picked the rock up and I ran and I threw it, I wonder if I could throw it any farther. And then wondering, why was I able to throw it farther when I ran and threw it as opposed to when I stood and threw it? That's free thinking. That's thinking without limitation. Don't limit yourself, no matter what you've read or what you've heard. The only limitations on the human being are those that are specifically spelled out in the Quran. Everything else you think about and want to do, try it. Develop it. Run with it. Don't fear failure. Don't fear anybody saying anything about what you're doing. That's free thinking. Just do it, unless the Quran says you can't. Now, on Africa, what is happening on that continent is long overdue. Yes. And most of you have said that. Our involvement with them, with that continent, has been spotty since I recognized, when I was a very young child, before I ever started school, that there was such a place called Africa. When my parents were telling me stories about Africa and old people that they grew up with who told stories about Africa and that they had learned from their parents and all that. But as one of the brothers said, we were fed a narrative about Africa, especially in the 1960s when I started school and into the 70s, that was false in full, but had a lot of truth in the wholeness of it. The continent was in many ways backwards. lack of education, lack of infrastructure, no electricity, no running water, so on and so forth. They didn't have the ability to do a lot of the things that were happening in the Western world as far as manufacturing and processing and things of that nature, because the infrastructure simply wasn't there for them to do it. When I was in college, I went to a small school, small private school, but we had an inordinate number of foreign students, and a lot of them were from Africa. And they were from places like Liberia and Ivory Coast and Nigeria. And I think we had a couple of them that played on the soccer team that were from Morocco. And what I found out in interacting with them was that they were really smart. I mean, the Liberian students, the Ivory Coast students, the Nigerian students, they were smart. It wasn't until years later that I recognized that, you know, those young men were the best or some of the best from their country. That's why they were in the United States. They were specifically chosen and assisted in getting here. But it did set a foundation for them or for their country in that they came and got the Western science education. They never forgot their country, their culture, their history, but they did come here and get the science education, and they took it home. Two of those people I've kept in contact with over the last 40, 50 years. And a couple of them became ministers in their country, one in Nigeria, one in Liberia. They're retired now, living fat in the land. But that happened all over Western Europe. It happened with students going to Japan and China and India and other points around the world. There is an educational foundation in Africa now that, given resources, they can develop the infrastructure that they need to be able to process all their raw materials and develop products and services in their country.
Right.
They don't need our backs to come over there and dig minerals. There's machinery that does that, and they know how to operate the machines. What they need and what they're going to have to continue getting from the World Bank and the IMF and Western countries and Western multinational corporations is money. Because if you don't have the money to do all the stuff that we've talked about this morning, that ore sits in the ground or it sits piled up on the side of the road. Because you've got to have the processing plants, you've got to have the railways, you've got to have the ports, you've got to have the airfields, you've got to have the highways to be able to transport all that stuff. And right now, most of the countries there don't have it.
Guess who's providing it though now?
Oh, Chinese.
Exactly.
The Chinese are providing it in exchange for, guess what? Paying a lower price for the minerals that are coming out of the ground.
Well, at least they got, but what was the deal before then?
Oh, before then, they were just getting robbed by Western Europe in particular.
Point, if the oppression if the oppression and the wrongdoing wasn't present, then there would be no way the Chinese could come in and offer something that was already been provided.
I 100% agree with you. So
see, the Chinese are smart enough. Let's give something on the front end.
Yes.
To cut the Western parts out that won't give in on the front or the back end.
I agree. The Chinese are very smart in that, and that's the way the Chinese wage war. They don't come with guns; they come with money.
Right.
Right, and machinery to build roads.
Yep.
And create ports like they've done in Djibouti and other places.
Right.
As African Americans, we have an intellectual base amongst African Americans in this country that supersedes, is greater than any other group of African people in the world. And it's not even close. We also have money. Trillions of dollars of money amongst African Americans that we do not direct in the right directions. It's in 401ks and profit sharing plans that are invested in Western countries that won't even give you a junior vice president's job. in that corporation if you're qualified. So part of our goal is to create partnerships with African companies and help them have the financing that they need to grow and be able to compete and do things on the world stage. Now, that's not an easy thing, because that's a trust factor. Your money, knowing that the people on the other end are trustworthy, putting systems in place that allow you to manage that. But that's where I see us.
Edwin, I hate to be and I ain't gonna say the other word. We're not an advocate, what you're saying. But how can we help someone else do something we're not even helping ourselves do?
It's two sides of
it. Make sense.
Yes.
To practice that amongst ourselves first.
Yes.
So that's why I don't get all hoopsy doing talking about going and help somebody else.
I agree. You and I've had this discussion before. Let me
also, because we got to get ready to get out here, man. Yusuf Ramadan is on now. Alhamdulillah.
All right.
But that's why I love this statement that was attributed to Ibrahim Traore in his message to the young Africans, and that they've conveniently taken off of. They took that video down, by the way, but I wrote it down. And he said, "You may think you are free because the soldiers have left and the colonizers have gone home. When your enemy leaves behind a school system that teaches you to hate your skin, mistrust your brother, to glorify your oppressor, and escape your homeland, then the colonizer never truly left. He just moved into your mind." I'm glad I wrote that down. Whether he said it or not, whether it was AI or not, it was true in my estimation. So with that, it's 9 o'clock, and my brother's on the line, and I got to step aside for Imam Yusuf Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum, brother, man.
Wa alaikum assalam. Well, I echo that sentiment 1,000%. Whether he said it or not, if he didn't say it, he should have said
it. Somebody said that's AI. I said, yeah, it is African intelligence.
Yes. No, that makes all the sense in the world. You know, they're talking about the colonization like it's something in the past, neo-colonialism and all that. But when you visit a lot of these countries, that's so-called, whether it's in Africa or the Caribbean, and it's supposed to be Black run and owned and operated, and we don't own and operate nothing other than a taxi, a car from the airport to the hotel. You know, if you're lucky, that's about it. You know, other people, and it's not just the so-called white man. You go there, and the Chinese own all the supermarkets, and you know, well, I'm preaching to the choir. I'm telling you stuff that you already know. If you travel, you know, one of them Caribbean countries I went to one time, they said, "Welcome to the Black man's paradise." And I said to my wife, "It's more like the Black man's hell." I mean, they don't own, and their currency was they were using American currency. So I know if buying things in America is expensive for us with that currency and with those prices, I mean, that had to be killing them. I mean, the gas prices and everything over there wasn't making no money. Like, you know, it's tough for us in some of these cities. You know what I mean? Everybody know New York is expensive, but shoot, you go down south now, and I don't see, other than certain factors such as rent or something like that, but groceries and things like that, I don't really see no difference in price. To tell you the truth, maybe I'm wrong. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but hey, it looked like it's expensive to live all over.
Well, it is. Also consider that the wages down here still haven't matched wages up there, so it's expensive.
That's right. So yeah, you're right. So even when you go to, I mean, you can find rents that are not you know, these rents in New York are insane. You know, matter of fact, I was just having dinner with a brother last night that owns some property, and he was saying that the little 2-bedroom apartment in one of his buildings is going for $2,600 a month. Now this is not in Manhattan. You know, this is Queens, which is considered well, they call it an outer borough. As opposed to Manhattan. So it's kind of a way to, you know, the New Yorkers are kind of snobbish. You know, those New Yorkers they only consider Manhattan New York. You know, the outer boroughs, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and the Bronx, they consider that the outer boroughs. You know, but anyway, uh, thank you for your discussion as always. It's very thought provoking, and we'll try to pick up where you left off.
Yes, sir. Well, it's your show, brother.
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. That is peace be unto you in God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We'd like to welcome everyone to New Day for Islam in America, American Muslim 360 edition. I used to say the #1 Islamic radio station, but I guess this is not a radio station anymore, right? We're dealing with a different technology. My name is Yusuf Ramadan, and it's the show that deals with current events, trending topics, and issues of concern from the Muslim perspective. And as always, we say the Muslim perspective is and always should be the human perspective. And that's so important. It's so important to focus on the human perspective. I was having a discussion. Who was I talking? Oh, I was. Well, I don't really recall, but we were talking about the proliferation of an expansion of al-Islam among different groups and or different sectors. I would say different sectors of, say, the African American population, particularly among the youth. And we're seeing the dissemination of information about al-Islam being having an effect on the I would say the urban youth, what they refer. Well, really, I shouldn't say urban because those maladies are actually to be found even in suburban areas and even some rural areas. Believe it or not, that's the proliferation of these gangs. You know, the Crips and the Bloods, which is the latest iteration. Because we were talking about that. That's where it was at the Eid al-Adha celebration, and we were talking about those of us that are a little advanced in age, and we came along before that was such a well-known factor in our communities, the Crips and the Bloods. But we had gangs by other names. We had other names, the chaplains, all other the bishops, all of those gangs were very prevalent in our community. And I remember as my early boyhood in Harlem, you know, they were recruiting us. I couldn't have been no more than 6, 7 years old. And you would say, "Oh, come on, brother, how are you going to recruit?" Well, their influence over the young, you don't know what you're getting into. You don't realize you're joining a gang, but they just recruit you to do things, tell you to do things, and then you comply. You comply because those are older boys, and you want to be accepted. You just want to play. I remember them giving me some of y'all may not know this unless you're from that area and that era, a zip gun, which was a block of wood with a nail on it and a rubber band, and they would actually give you a real bullet, a small caliber shell like a 22, and you could do some damage with it. You could put somebody's eye out. Of course, it wasn't as effective as a real handgun, but handguns were not the proliferation of handguns in our communities wasn't what we see today in all communities, really. So especially in our community, the African American community, you didn't find guns on the street the way you do now. And I know it's very uh, fashionable to say. You'll hear Minister Farrakhan and others that will say that it's white people that's bringing the guns to us and the drugs, and we don't manufacture guns, brother. We don't manufacture any guns. Well, we don't manufacture cars, but they ain't bringing cars to us either. We buy them, right? Well, same thing with guns. Ain't nobody never gave us no guns. And I used to hear that stuff about drugs. Yes, brother, they will give you drugs to get you hooked. They'll give you the first one free. No, you're gonna pay for the first one and you're gonna pay for the last one. You're gonna buy the guns. Okay. Nobody ever, I've heard actually people say, I've heard some people say that they brought guns, a train load of guns in the black community, and all you had to do to go there and get you one. That's a lie. Okay. That's a lie. Now, I would be remiss to say that it never happened in the history of humanity. I don't know that. I haven't been everywhere. But I can tell you without question that the things that we are using to destroy ourselves and destroy each other, we are buying. They're selling it to you. Okay. Now, there was a time when in the northern cities where they had stricter gun laws, such as New York and things like that, where you go to jail, and it's very hard to get one legally. They would just go down to Virginia or other North Carolina, other places where they had much more lax gun laws, or if any at all. Buy one, get in the car, come back here in New York and sell it. That's just a fact. Now you may not want to hear that. That might, destroy your whole theory. But the reality is, let's just say that was true. There's go to the train yard and go get you some free drugs, as absurd and ridiculous as that sounds, and people sell drugs because that's how they make money. And you go and get you some free. Who's telling you to use it? Who's forcing you to use it? Who's forcing you to sell it? And who's forcing you to shoot somebody? Nobody. Nobody. So it's absurd on the face of it. Okay. And then they tried to take it away. I was watching this. I was watching one of them YouTube channels, and one ex mafia guy was saying, "Oh, the mafia didn't sell drugs. The mafia didn't sell." That's a lie. That's a total and complete lie. Okay. Uh, and I asked a serious question, telling question. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. The mafia is Italian, right? Okay. Do Italian boy do they use drugs? Let me answer for you in case you want to scratch your head. Absolutely do. They use drugs in the street, in prison. They smuggle drugs and use it. So if you're using, you sell it. If you use, you'll sell. Oh, you too moral to sell the drugs, but you're not too moral to use them. It's absurd on the face of it. Plus, I'm telling you what I know. I'm not guessing. I'm not doing a Harvard study to find out. Yes, they absolutely sell drugs. That's what they sold. That's what they try to sell to the public. Now, did they have a provision saying that if they caught other among themselves, that if they caught one of them selling drugs, they would kill them? Yes, because of the structure that they have. The structure that they have, that whatever crimes you commit, you have. If you've ever seen The Sopranos or one of those shows, you have to kick up to your boss, to your captain, and then whoever is in charge. So what would happen is they gave out such harsh penalties, prison penalties, that the bosses didn't need to do that because they were already in prostitution, they were already in hijacking, they were already in gambling. They didn't need the drug money. But the young guys on the street did whatever look, their main reason for being in existence is to make money. Okay. So did they might have put that rule out there, but did they break it with regularity? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So don't let them, they try to influence you to make you think that, you're the bottom of the barrel. If you're a criminal, you're a criminal. Huh? Those criminals are doing things to make money. So they want to try to convince you, you know, and they have this show that that really gets to me called The Godfather of Harlem, which is a bunch of Hollywood nonsense, where they want to show that Malcolm had a tight relationship with Bumpy Johnson, the famous black gangster from Harlem, which is not true. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't know one another, because we know that Malcolm, which we've been talking about, his roots stem from criminal activity in Boston, in Detroit. They called him Detroit Red. They didn't call him that because he was a Muslim. Detroit Red. And the imam spoke about it. He said, "I'm not here to try to denigrate Malcolm, but we know his roots. He was a burglar. He was a thief, a petty thief. He was a pimp. He used drugs. Now we don't know. We don't have any direct, or I don't have any direct evidence that if he used drugs, that he sold drugs. But what I'm saying is, if you deal in that, you mean in that commodity, you mean to tell me that it's beyond you that you would sell it? No, I don't have any direct evidence, but we know that he was hooked on heroin, and we saw in his book and in the movie where he had the kick when he was incarcerated. He had the kick. Yes. So we know this to be a fact. Now, we're not bringing this out to try to denigrate our brother. No, we're bringing this out to try to say that he came through, and I had this conversation with one of his daughters, and I don't fault her for feeling that way. This is her father. She has a different relationship. But my position was, and many of our position was, that Malcolm didn't become Malcolm until he was introduced to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Rahimahullah alayhi, and the teachings of the Nation of Islam. I think that's kind of indisputable. But she brought out the fact that her parents, her grandparents, which was Malcolm's parents, were part of the Garvey movement. So in other words, she was saying that his consciousness was pricked before coming in contact with the Nation of Islam. Now, my pushback on that is, well, he wasn't known. We didn't hear about him. He didn't come into his fullness until he became Minister Malcolm. I mean, that's just a fact, and I understand why she feels that way, because she feels that we've been talking about this also, that the nation is responsible for assassinating her father, and he was killed in front of his family. So she's dealing with it from a personal point of view, okay? And so I couldn't argue with her, but so much. Yes, that might have been in his consciousness, but he was very young at the time, and they give really was one of his brothers. They give credit for introducing him to the teachings of a Nation of Islam, but actually it was his sister that wrote to him in prison, and because I was talking to some brothers about their how come there was such animosity towards him, and I was explaining, the brother who Rahman, the brother who did that documentary on, who the killing of Malcolm X. I forget the exact name, and I happened to be sitting behind him in a screening, and he had quite a bit of animosity has quite a bit of animosity towards the nation. I was trying to get him to see the context in which people came from similar circumstances as Malcolm. And this is one of my many complaints with the Godfather of Harlem. Came that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that they don't give credit to him for pulling us literally from the dead, the walking dead, from drugs and prostitution and criminality and being in prison, being in these prisons, and that he, because of him and what he taught and how he was able to motivate and inspire us, that people had a cult like admiration for him, and anybody that would speak out against him was seen as an enemy or seen as a traitor. Okay, he couldn't process that because he was more like, there's a group that actually we call them. It seems as though they worship Malcolm. They worship Malcolm, and so that was part of the man bringing us back to some type of uh, balanced approach to seeing Malcolm, when they were saying that Malcolm, if you go online and there's a whole platform where they do nothing but bash the Nation of Islam and Honorable Elijah Muhammad, etc. And but they was Malcolm said that that Imam Muhammad told him about the children that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had with some secretaries that were working for him. And the Imam said, that's not true. Now, you don't have to believe the Imam. You wasn't there. I wasn't there. I choose to believe the Imam. But the brother said, no. Malcolm said, okay, so they choose to believe Malcolm. Why would the Imam lie about it? He said, no, Malcolm came to me and I told him that I was aware of it. That's different than what would be accomplished by the Imam going to Malcolm. You tell me that. He's the son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Why would he go to Malcolm? What's Malcolm going to do for him about his father's personal business? Now, am I saying it's impossible for it? No. I'm saying that here's two different people giving us two different versions, which happens in life, and I choose to believe the Imam. Okay? And the Imam went on further to say that he failed to believe that Malcolm was so outraged or clutching his pearls that his father had relations with some other women, that this outraged Malcolm to the extent that he couldn't believe his eyes. He said, here's a man that was a pimp that sold women in the street for sex. Again, this is not to denigrate Malcolm, but this is reality. And it's just as important today. You say, well, brother, man, why you look, if you go online, these people are talking about these things today like it happened yesterday. And it's important that we set the record straight. Very important that we set the record straight. Okay? Again, the Imam said when Malcolm came back from Mecca, that they would say, oh, I saw blue-eyed Muslims, I saw white Muslims. He said, he said, Malcolm was a master of manipulating the media. Okay? And he said that was part of Malcolm's strategy. He already knew that. That wasn't something that he just found out. You see? So the people who worship Malcolm, every word that he says, they just take it on face value. Now, I'm not saying that Malcolm absolutely did not deserve what happened to him. Absolutely didn't deserve that. Okay? But the Imam spoke about that too. He said, look, personal business is, he said, you never heard me really speak on my father. He said, my father saw himself as a biblical type character. In fact, he taught more. Those of you who were in the Nation of Islam that are on this broadcast now know that rarely, not that he didn't mention the Quran, but most of his teachings was from the Bible. And we know that the man pointed out that they accept the Bible, and even the Christians today, they will reject the notion that a man can have more than one wife. But they accept the Bible that talks about Suleiman, that had 100 wives. 100 wives. And they don't throw that part of the Bible out. Huh? They don't throw that out. He had 100 wives and 1,000 concubines. Okay? This is I mean, take it for what it is. If it's a little too much for you, turn the channel. But this is reality. Okay? So the man would say that Malcolm was really like a brother, one of his brothers, that even his mother, Clara Muhammad, may Allah forgive her sins and grant her the paradise, that even his mother referred to him as son. They saw him as a brother. Okay? So these are, and it's so important because these issues that are still within the consciousness of, well, not just our people, but mainly among our people, you know, they talked about so so that Godfather of Harlem. The reason why I say it's Hollywood crap, they instead of giving credit to the inspiration of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they show those um, brothers and sisters who joined the Nation of Islam that had drug habits. They showed them being handcuffed to the bed in the basement of number 7. What a ridiculous thing to do! But it's not ridiculous. They're doing it with an agenda in mind. I was watching this movie with Chris Rock last night. They opened up the movie, and he said, and the sister saying to him, "Sometimes a movie is just a movie." He said, "No, it's never a movie. It's never just a movie. They always have a message," and they're right. Always have it. They don't just no. It's just entertaining. No, they make it entertaining. They make it entertaining. Yes, and part of it is to be entertaining. That's why you get good writers and you get better writers. Huh? You get people to put music to it. There's a whole a range of jobs that go into making a film. The cinematographer, the director of photography, which director you gonna get? Huh? Which assistant director are you gonna get? Your lighting technician. All those things go into it. Hair and makeup. All those I worked on films. All those things go into it. And a film that I worked on one time called "You Think It's Just for Entertainment." That's what they want to sell to you. I worked on a film called The Nanny Diaries with Alicia Keys was playing one of the nannies, and Scarlett Johansson. She was the lead. So they always have one of us as the sidekick. And I'm telling you for a fact that they called during the filming that film. It was about nannies or au pairs, as they call them, and they said that Alicia Keys was coming across too glamorous. You hear what I said? Oh, they want you to be as glamorous as possible, but they don't want you to outshine the star. They wanted me to do security, personal security for Scarlett Johansson. I came to the producer's office and she was late. So after I waited for a while, he said, "Well, I'm not gonna hold you. We'll catch up with her another time." So it was a rainy type of day. So I left. And went and I'm still in the building, but I go to the elevator bank, and I see a man standing there, and I see a little short girl, and she had on a hoodie. So I'm standing there waiting for the elevator with them, and it dawns on me, that's her. That's her right there, without the hair and makeup, and all that, looking like she's 4'11", without the hair and makeup and all that. They ain't as pretty and glamorous as they got you. They don't put her on, oh, she's the sexiest woman in the world. Yeah, after hair, makeup, and all that other stuff. Hello. So the reality was Alicia Keys was showing up on the screen more attractive than her. They couldn't have that. They didn't want that. I'm telling you, they have an agenda. They're pushing it. They want that she's the star of the show. And they're not gonna let nobody outshine her. So don't believe that any of these films whatever film you're watching, that they don't have a point of view that they're trying to push upon you. That's just reality. All right. Now, I heard somebody, I don't see anybody's hand up. If you wanted to jump in and ask a question or make a comment, just put your hand up and we'll bring you in. Yes. So the reality is they're showing these people handcuffed to a bed in the basement of Temple Number 7 in Harlem, which is now Malcolm Shabazz Masjid. Well, who the hell can't do that? Anybody can handcuff you to a bed. If that's stopping you from using drugs, then the message that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had ain't no big thing. Anybody can do that, right? But that's not what happened. That's not what happened. Okay? People heard the message of the Nation of Islam and stopped using drugs. Not no 12-step program. And I'm not putting down the 12-step program. I'm saying whatever, drugs is such a scourge, whatever you can do to get off of drugs, brothers and sisters, that's what you should do. I'm not telling you not to do that. Whatever you can do, that's what you should do. If it works for you, it works for you. Okay? But I'm telling you that there's brothers and sisters that heard that you can't be in crime. You can't be women, you can't be a prostitute. You can't be a pimp. You got to stop gambling. You got to stop drinking liquor. And that's what they did. Now, those of you who were there, you know that I'm telling the truth. But they don't want to share that with the public. Then they on there talk like Bumpy Johnson was such a good friend of Malcolm. Now, were they both in the gambling business together, in the number business? Yes, they were. But Bumpy was on the top and Malcolm was on the bottom. So is it possible that they knew each other? Absolutely. But there's no such thing as he was, oh, I told Malcolm that they were going to kill him. So they want to make the street guy, they want to make the hustler, they want to make the gangster, and I know it's his show, it's about him. He's the hero. He could have saved Malcolm. If Bumpy Johnson dreamed that he was going to use his street thugs to go up against the FOI, he would have woke up and apologized. I'm from New York. I'm not guessing. I'm telling you what I know. I'm from Harlem. I'm from 116th Street. Yeah, I was born on that street. The masjid is still at 102 West 116th Street. My address was 120 West 116th Street. Did I get any closer? On the same side of the street. I know that block like the back of my hand. I just told you I was out there and they was trying to give me zip guns and everything else as a young boy.
Yes, Mr. McFarland.
You think I'm making that up? I'm not making that up. And when I brought that zip gun they told me, take it upstairs and hide it in the closet. And my father saw it and said, what the hell is this? Where you get this from? I said, the big boys get, what big boys? Show me who they are. So that gang mentality was in our people. This is going back to the 50s and the 40s before I was born. So what I was saying was that al-Islam is the only ideology strong enough to bring together in the same masjid, to be on the same line, lined up for salat, as bring the Crips and the Bloods together. I've seen it with my own eyes. And I've said to them, how can you come here and line up to make prayer and worship your Lord, and then go outside, you want to kill each other because he's wearing red or you wearing blue? Make that make sense. So that's part of my rant. And if anybody would like to weigh in on this topic, feel free. I don't see any hands up. Okay. So if you want me to continue, now I can run my mouth from now on. If you want to add something to the topic or ask a question, please do so. Just do it at any time and I'll stop. We'll bring you in. Okay. So now we're looking at the situation that we have, the political situation that we have. We have a very trying political situation. And we see people in the streets. We see people in the streets that are being arrested for protesting. They're accusing they're accusing the protesters of being paid. That's what the president is saying. They're paid protesters. Why would they need to be paid when we see how they're being treated by the government? Why would they need to be paid? You mean to tell me when you see your uncle or your cousin or your father, your son or your brother or your sister being swept up and sent to El Salvador, or now they're talking about sending them to Guantanamo Bay? You mean to tell me you need to be paid to be outraged about that? I find that hard to believe. Are there some paid people out there? I wouldn't doubt it. Are there some government people out there? Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Because we know that there's no movement that the government doesn't insinuate themselves into. Imam W.D. Muhammad Rahimahullah, he taught us about the infiltrators, huh? The agent provocateurs. And they infiltrated the Nation of Islam, did they not? Yes. I'm not waiting for you to answer. Yes. The answer is yes. Did they infiltrate the Panthers? Yes. Did they infiltrate the Marcus Garvey movement? Yes. Absolutely. Hell, they even infiltrated the Green movement. Okay? Yeah. So they infiltrate all those movements. And the agent provocateur is trying to provoke you. That's what it means. Provoke you to do things so you can get locked up. This is a fact. Okay? So that happens under any administration. Were there agent provocateurs on the January 6th at the Capitol? For sure. Were there actual people out there that were demonstrating or upset about the election? Sure. So you don't just take, you're not, you have to be a little more sophisticated when you're looking at a situation. It's not either black or white. Yes, there's people involved. Yes, they had to go. Yes, there was FBI agents at the Capitol when they were having that, when they were storming the Capitol. And the FBI said, "Oh no, those weren't FBI agents. Those were just our astro." Well, why they didn't call? They wasn't working when they were there. They admitted to that. What they didn't admit to that they had actual FBI agents there. They said there was people that worked for them. Well, those people that worked for you is just like you. They wasn't feeding you information while they were there. So we have to be very careful. We just can't fall into emotion. You need to come out there and protest. You have to analyze the situation, see it for what it is. See it for what it is. So I don't see anybody. Brother Muhammad Sharif, is that? No, I don't see anybody's hand up. I don't know if if I was made the host, but if anybody would like to ask a question or make a comment, please feel free to do so. All right. Everybody's muted. If you raise your hand, we'll ask to unmute you. All right. Nobody wanted to jump in at this time. All right. So we're going to continue. We will continue with the program. So we're looking at a very precarious situation for our country. Okay, this is 251. State your name and where you're calling from, please.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Henry Hasib in Mobile, Alabama.
They're
very interesting and educational program that we got going on here.
Alhamdulillah.
And education, true education, is what we've been missing. Too long we have went for his story, and his story was never to benefit us. Whatever the truth was, it was painted to make it look as though it was something else. And we have to realize we have lived under that a lifetime, and that we all, as I say, none of us escape. So we have to work on ourselves to get us from under that type of mindset that has really hurt us as individuals, and it has hurt us as a people. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else? You can raise your hand. We'll bring you into the discussion as well. Yeah. So we know that the media is used. Noam Chomsky wrote a book or co-wrote a book one time called Manufacturing Consent. Manufacturing consent. And this is how they get the American people to go along with something. They start flooding the airwaves with information that they want you to have. One thing that Donald Trump was right about when he said fake news is absolutely fake news. Meaning what? It's not fake news to say, oh, there's a snowstorm in New York today in July. Not fake like that. But the way that if we looked at Hurricane Katrina, the way they spin it, the way they spun it and spoke about it, that's the fake news. By giving you certain information, withholding other information. You feel me? That's the fake news. They talk about it in such a way. Or the way that let's for instance, I happen to watch a show every night with the sister Abby Phillips, right, on CNN. So occasionally they have some very lively discussions, and part of their programming approach is to bring, this is the way they sell it. Oh, we bring people with different viewpoints that they don't get together, but here we do. No, but what's the different viewpoint? What's the different viewpoint? Huh? They pick and choose the person that's going to come on. So in other words, they're not going to bring me on, and I don't just mean me. I'm saying somebody with my POV, with my point of view. Oh no, they're not going to do that. Because I was surprised they had Dr. Cornel West on the other day, and he's he's a very popular figure. He ran for president and everything. But they had Dr. Cornel West, but he came on talking about the United States as empire. They don't really allow that, and they were just looking at him like, oh boy, here he goes. You let him talk. Okay, let's move on to the next person. He was talking about America having 800 military bases throughout the world. 800. Did you hear what I said? I didn't say 80. I said 800. Now, they will sell that as, well, we're trying to make the world safe for democracy. How's that your business? Think about that for a minute. You're putting a good spin on it. That sounds good to somebody that don't know better. But when did it become your job to how about making America safe for democracy? Let's work on that. You mean to tell me that's your job? So they have this messianic vision that they see, what they call American exceptionalism. Exceptionalism means you the only one can do it. What's in the water here in America that makes you come out of your mother's womb, drink water, and grow up and you become the world savior? That's nonsense. That's a point of view that they're selling to the people. We want everybody to enjoy the democracy that we have. Okay. Wanting people to enjoy it and sending people with guns and weapons and planes is two different things, ain't it? Huh? All right. I think American Muslim 360, is that Sister Martha?
Brother Michael.
Oh, Brother Michael. All right. Please jump in.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Yes, sir. It's beautiful to hear you share the logic, the common sense logic that is missed because of all of the distractions and the influences designed to really mess up common sense. Common sense is kind of rare because the air is full of influences to really just keep common sense from being common. So I appreciate what you're sharing. And we make a distinction between America the beautiful and the citizens that acknowledge a common humanity for us all versus America the ugly that have this idea that they're going to police the world,
Yes.
that white is right, that the race, the European race is superior to everybody else. And I use the terminology performance enhancing drugs.
Mm.
And white color superiority, white so-called white superiority, and race are factors that have actually affected the soul of those that have accepted it, and even those that are affected by it. We've been affected by it. When I say we, I'm talking about African Americans and those who are quote unquote non-white. We've been affected by this idea, but it's actually killing those that have accepted it hook, line, and sinker, or those that have used it as a tool. They know the reality, but this drug is affecting those that they have influence over. And it's actually destroying the idea of America. And the folks that are following this present administration, they're finding out that they've been lied to, and that they're not all that they think that they are. And the proof of it is really someone just sitting down and saying, well, let's look at the history. Let's look at how you have, claimed democracy in one hand and claimed a superiority that you're willing to do anything in terms of disrespecting those people that you don't see as human as you, or even really respecting their humanity. The history is there. It's and a lot of it has been written by your own European folks. The hundred years of lynching and the other realities in terms of how this performance enhancing drug has really made Americans a savage people. A people with very little integrity. Those that hold on to these ideas that are really damaging to the soul. And I'll stop with that, Imam. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Anyone else? Just raise your hand. We'll bring you in. And Brother Henry, did you raise your hand again, or you still have it up from before? All right. Anyone else want to join the discussion? But yes, you're right. Look, fake news is them characterizing things. They're telling you that Iran is a threat to the world because they want to introduce nuclear weapons to the Middle East. But they don't talk about Israel already having nuclear weapons for the last 30, 40 years. That's not a threat. That's not a threat. See, they condemn what they call terrorist behavior or violent behavior. You people are violent. Hmm? And they point to something that is violent. But when they do it, when they do the violence, they justify the violence. And not because you can't deny that the person is dead. There's no way to deny that. But they tell you that person should be dead. We should have killed that person. Huh? That's the fake news. That's the fake news. They start right in. They start right in with it, trying to justify a situation. You see? And so, uh, you know, our test that the Imam spoke about, I don't know if it's a sister or a brother, you never know, when these people are online, right? They look like or they put their profile picture up. Hmm? They could be a 45-year-old man living in his mother's basement, as they say, and they present themselves online as a teenager, okay, as a teenage girl. So you never know who these people are. They're hiding behind, their screens. Uh, and they said, let me see if I can find. Said, oh, there was a beautiful thing on Instagram where the believers, men and women, were showing their different dress that they wore to Eid al-Adha, to the Eid al-Adha prayer and celebration. And it was very beautiful, very positive. And this person came on there. They don't want you to know that you're still being colonized. They force you to speak Arabic and accept their culture. I said, now you just finished watching the same video that I did. The sisters from Nigeria showed you their clothes. The sisters from Pakistan showed you theirs. Huh? From Ethiopia, from all the different countries. Is not clothing culture? So how are they forcing you into Arab culture? And not one of them said that they were wearing Arab clothing. Or somebody else said, Dr. Umar Johnson, you have to eat Arab food. Now, where the hell did he get that from? What is Arab food to begin with? What is he talking about? They're just talking. They just hate al-Islam. They don't want to accept. Like I said one person said to me, you need to accept all of the Muslims. Everybody that's Islamic. The so-called Sunni Muslims, the Nation of Islam, the 5%ers, the Moorish American. Hell no. Hell no, we're not all the same. We are not. Absolutely not. And how you going to lump the 5%ers in with the Nation of Islam when the brother who started the 5%ers got kicked out of the Nation of Islam for using drugs? Then he came with his own lessons. I mean, what are y'all even talking about? You want me to accept, but they don't accept each other. If they accepted each other, he would have been in the Nation of Islam, and the Nation of Islam wouldn't have excommunicated him. So what are you even talking? See, people just talk. They think they know what they're talking about, and then people accept that. Well, that's true. If y'all were really together as Muslims, you would love and accept one another. Then he said, yeah, are you trying to tell me you're going to sit there and lie and say that Muslims are not racist, Arabs are not racist? I said, Muslims and Arabs are human. They do anything anybody else does. But Islam is not racist. Show it to me in the Quran where it's racist. You can't. No, don't hold me accountable for what Muslims do. That's the ones that want to try to take us away from Islam. Well, the Arabs had a worse slave trade than the Europeans. Prove it. Where's it at? Show me where the Arabs are still in Africa. Oh, well, they're there. No, but show me where they are running the country or they're colonizing the people. And that's what I started out talking about. You can go to these countries today. Go to these countries today. I went to what's the name of that country we went to? Oh, Saint Martin. There's two of them. Saint Martin, Marten, and then and there's a French side, which they spell Martin, and a Dutch side. I said, well, hell, where's our side? There ain't but two sides. They divided up the island. One side is the French side, the other side is the Dutch side. The Dutch side has more gambling and that type of quote unquote entertainment over there. The French is different. And even on the French side, the police officers are white Frenchmen. I didn't see too many blacks in uniform. They had a white police uniform in St. Martin. How they got they're the police in St. Martin? Because colonialism had went nowhere. In other words, colonialism was designed to come and take the resources from the people and bring it back to the Europeans. It started with the papal bull. The papal bull called the Doctrine of Discovery, where the Europeans, the Portuguese, and the Spanish were fighting each other to see which one of them could take the resources. And the Pope told them, stop fighting each other. We're going to split up the world. You take North America, you take South America. And both of y'all bring it back to me. I'm the Pope. Okay? This is the doctrine of discovery. Look it up for yourself. Google it. They haven't changed. They haven't changed that. And that's why Ibrahim Traore is causing such a problem for them, because he's kicking out the French. They're so used to colonizing our people, taking the resources, that they're upset that you would even think to get out of that bag. So Macron, these countries would starve without our resources. These countries would starve. Okay? And he said, well, let's be friends. He said, well, aren't you in America friends? Yes. Aren't you in the UK friends? Yes. Well, do you have soldiers in their country? Well, why you got to have soldiers in my country in order for us to be friends? Brother Henry, you back in? Or was your hand up from before? All right. Well, we're coming to the end of the show. I just want to bring as many of you in as I can, because I can run my mouth. I see number 2 has their hand up. Who's number 2? I don't really know who that is.
I've got my hand up here, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. I think President Traore is doing a lot to expose the language of the bad business deals that colonization, neo-colonization, I think that's the political term that they may use,
Yes.
and the identification, just as in occupied Palestine,
Right.
we had a situation where, quote unquote, Muslim forces, Hamas, was being paid to disrupt the earlier the
The
earlier
PLO. The PLO. The
yes, sir.
PLO.
Yes, sir. And you've got Muslims in Africa, so-called Muslims in Africa, that are being paid to be disruptors, in Burkina Faso and other places,
Absolutely.
And so, he is exposing with clear language
Yes.
the game, the secrets, and
That's right.
the taking of resources. And
That's right.
we've got a homegrown economist here, Richard Wolff, who was talking about the American empire is on its way out, and how America and other governments, European governments, have been held up by taking these resources out of Africa. And
That's right.
When Africa stands up and say no more bad business deals, it means the decline of these nations, so-called first tier nations. It means their decline, because they've been using Africa and strategies to disunite the
Living off
African
your back. That's right. Living off our
exactly,
back. Yeah.
exactly.
That's
Thank you,
right.
thank you.
Well, look, that's what I want you help me to refocus on that. If you look at what's happening in California, okay, there ain't no such thing as California. That's Mexico. Okay? You think that you can steal something, and if you stole it and he had it long enough, it becomes yours. That's what they think. That's what their outrage is, that these people are here in our land. Look at the outrage that they have. This belongs to us. California is Mexico. New Mexico is old Mexico. Texas is Mexico. Arizona is Mexico. Now, the fact that you changed it the designation, and you see that Trump has the same mentality because he tipped his hand. People think you can't read their mind. You don't have to read their mind. They're telling you. It's not the Gulf of Mexico, it's the Gulf of America. Think about that. This man has the same mentality. They're trying to hold on to the old world thinking. And some of these Negroes are going right along with them. Okay? Thinking that it's going to make their situation better. You change the name and the designation of California, Los Angeles, that's Spanish name. But the people are still there. Whether you call them Americans or Mexicans, they're the same people. You think these political designations are going to make, no. So of course it's going to start in Los Angeles. Where you think them people are going to go? That's why Trump is saying, you have to prove that you love us. First, prove that you love us. Don't fly no Mexican flag, fly our flag. In other words, we want you to be happy that we stole from you. If you are happy that we stole from you, just like some of our people are happy that they got stolen.
And the acceptance of assassination as a political tool,
It's unbelievable.
and people remain silent.
That's right.
That day is over with.
Yeah.
That
Well,
day.
Unfortunately, I think you're right. The beginning of the consciousness of it, but they're still doing it.
Oh, no doubt about that.
They're still doing it.
No doubt about it.
And look, one brother, and I'm gonna name him. I'm gonna name him. He's running around saying that he's the successor to Imam W.D. Muhammad. Okay.
Yeah.
And he said that Ibrahim Traore should take off that sidearm and present himself as a statesman. Negro, do you know they tried to assassinate that man 23 times?
20 sometimes, yes.
Why would he take off his sidearm? To make you feel better? See, a lot of these people that think that they are qualified for leadership.
They've been conditioned to work against their own best interests.
That's right. That's right. And look, they didn't know the Imam. The Imam was a diplomat, but the Imam was also a realist.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that the Imam only had one side, which is diplomacy? He told you, I'm the son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
That's right.
You better catch on.
Yeah.
The Imam told us one time, he said, look, sometimes you have to crack the whip. He said, now I'm not like my father.
That's right.
He said, my father liked to crack the whip. He said, I don't like to crack the whip. He said, but if you know that the whip has to be cracked, go ahead and crack it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what the Imam said. I don't care if you call me a liar or what. Look, he said, go ahead and crack the whip. And when they come back to me and say, Brother Imam, do you know what happened? He said, no, but let me look into that.
I mean, the fact that he could use the language of Jacobite and talk about the rebellious Jews, and not get any feedback from those Zionists, they remain silent because if he said much more, it would expose them further, But
look, brother, you hit on something. I'm supposed to go, but what you hit on just now, you excited me. The Imam came to New York one time, and he was on a very popular show that was hosted by a Jewish American. I believe it was a Diamond. So he was on the show, and they asked him about Israel, and he said Israel was an outlawed nation. Israel was a settler nation. They had callers like we do now, and they said, "You're gonna let him stand up there and say?" And you know what the host said? Imam Muhammad is our guest. You asked him a question, he gave you his answer. Yes. In other words, he was too wise. He was too wise to let that genie out the bottle. He said, leave it, let sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah.
If we wake this one up, it's gonna be a problem.
Yes, sir.
That's right. So we thank all of y'all for listening.
Thank you.
And we appreciate your participation. If you enjoy the show, let someone else know about it. We pray that you had a blessed Eid Mubarak, and we pray that you have a blessed Jummah, and that you stay healthy and happy. Hold on to the rope of Allah. It's the most trustworthy handhold that never breaks. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.